Hello, brothers and sisters, fellow Equatorians. This is Sabata with the Equatoria Advocacy Foundation. The Director for Resource Mobilization and Project Management. Today is May 16th. And I'm coming to discuss with you whether it is worth celebrating May 16th by Equatorians or not. And here are some recommendations that I'm going to be giving. Before I give these recommendations, I would like to say this, that if you are an Equatorian and if you're wondering whether you should celebrate May 16th or not, I just want to explain certain facts before I give the recommendations. May 16th, basically, if you celebrate May 16th, that basically means you are celebrating the entry or the formation of the movement of the revolution that has brought about what is called South Sudan. So in other words, if you are celebrating May 16th, that means you are still honoring the outcome of the revolution that was fought by the SPLM organization. If you choose not to celebrate May 16th, that means you are no longer honoring the outcome of the war that was fought by the SPLM. Now, this brings us to a very interesting thing to discuss here. And it is whether the outcome of the revolution is worth it. You Equatorians, is the outcome of this revolution even worth it? Is the outcome of the war worth it? In other words, is it worth? Is it something that, when I say is worth, that means it is fit having it? Is it worth the result that it brought, that is South Sudan as a country to begin with, and as a country under the SPLM administration, of course, not a country under the people's rule, but under the SPLM administration. This concept is very important to be understood. If you have a country that is under the rule of the people, democracy, rule of the people, or it is under the control of some elites, a group of people called the SPLM, and they try to impose whatever administration they want onto you. I don't know if I can still refer to them as SPLM or some elites, because SPLM has even broken down into pieces now. So is the outcome of the revolution worth? Is it something you think it is good celebrating? The recommendation now that comes from Equatoria Advocacy Foundation is as follows. I think it is not worth celebrating May 16th. For what reasons? I have listed a couple of reasons here. One, the vision of the SPLM, you know, when the SPLM was organized and fighting started with the North, SPLM presented a vision of what's called the New Sudan. That vision has now been proven fallacious by the way the country is going right now. That reason was fallacious. I don't want to get into somebody coming up and saying, oh, you know what, it's just because John Garang died. No. I'll get into that later. But the reason was fallacious. That is, it was baseless. It was something that is not founded well. Why? Because the vision requires ideology. But the people who are you were not groomed in ideologies. You are groomed in tribal cocoons. So if this vision was to be argued analytically with some scientific studies through certain theories of political science, it is fallacious, it is baseless, it cannot be achieved because of the culture of the people. You know, when you are having a political vision, watch the culture of the people. Will the culture reinforce that vision or not? But the culture of the people of South Sudan wouldn't have reinforced that vision to begin with. So the vision is fallacious, and the vision couldn't have been attained anyways. And if the people of South Sudan think that they have achieved a country and it is worth having that country, well, see how you're living right now. It is, well, the vision of this country was promising power to you, rule of the people. But do you think you are now ruling the country? Do you think your representatives who are now sitting in the parliament are directing how things should be done through what is called grassroots way of seeing things, or it is just power from above, elites kind of throwing administration onto you, and you find yourself with no choice? The other reason that I've placed here is that the movement was not people's movement, but elites. Again, it brings me back to what I've just hinted to when I was explaining something on reason number one. This SPLM movement was not people's driven. It was just elites who have organized the movement and created what is called the vision for New Sudan, and did not properly analyze whether that vision will be attainable anyways. Will it be achieved based on the culture of the people? Because a revolutionarist who has a vision and would want to attain that vision must prepare the people who are going to be in that vision. The revolutionarist must prepare the people ideologically to fit that vision. But if the revolutionaries have not prepared the people ahead of time, they just want to create a state and then think that they are going to install that state onto the people, things might not work. But you educate the people first, you prepare them for that state, so that when you then bring the state, it will fit. For example, you cannot go to North Korea today or to China, get a movement, a revolution going, toss power out, and then all of a sudden try to bring the ideals of democracy onto the people there, because the people will eventually not be able to live in it, because the people there are not democratic by nature. All right? So the people of China or of Japan culturally are adjusted to that state, to that condition, those ideals. So you cannot bring another ideal and try to install it on them. It might be rejected by the people. What has SPLM prepared the people of South Sudan on when they fought this movement? There was no what is called orientation. Ideological orientation was not done to prepare the people. So basically, some elites just came up with a vision of New Sudan and got assistance from Western countries, because Western countries also had interest on the fact that certain political accomplishments needed to be accomplished. Those elites were supported with logistics, or by logistics, and then the people of South Sudan were basically, because they were miserable and they felt at the time they were being pressured by the North, they wanted freedom, so they were basically used by the elites to fight. They were given guns, they were given all the logistics necessary to carry on fighting, but they were not prepared ideologically to fit in what is called the new vision that was then being preached. So it is for that reason that I think Equatorians, you should feel as though the outcome of this revolution is not good enough for you right now to celebrate. The other reason is just simple. Today is May 16th, and the incident that took place in Mukwaya, where Equatorians who come from the Pojulu tribe were basically subjected to very, very terrible conditions. People were driven out of their houses, properties looted, and people got raped. Others are teenagers, as young, not only teenagers, children of 9 years, 10 years. These are children, and they ended up getting raped. This, of course, has been done by the administrative unit of the government, that is the military sector. A unit of the military sector from the government did that. They are responsible for that. You will wait for UNIMIS to go in there and make their reports and all that, and this is going to be the result. I would like to appreciate the churches who have come out and spoken about it, and I also appreciate the other civil associations who are talking about it and condemning the act of the government for doing something like that. There is no doubt this is the government military unit, that is the military sector, who are responsible for doing that. They carried those kind of acts, and the people of Equatoria are still mourning. So it doesn't make sense when you're still mourning. Today is still the 16th of May. The war that has been carried around that area just ended in 14th of May. That is 2 days ago. And the damages that happened in that area is still under evaluation, and already there are reports coming out from religious organizations and other civil organizations, and the damages have been to the extreme. And while Equatorians, you are mourning, it will not make sense you want to celebrate on the other side, that you want to celebrate May 16th. Doesn't make sense. If you happen to lose your person, even around Christmas time, I don't think you will celebrate Christmas, because you are mourning your person. So Equatorians, we are right now mourning some people that we have lost in those territories, and this is not something that is only of Equatoria. That of Pojulu. What happened in Mukwaya? It is a devastating condition that has befallen Equatorians, because in Mukwaya, it's not only typically Pojulu who are there. There are some Kuku, there are some Kakwa who are intermarried to some Pojulu. They are living in Mukwaya. And by the way, these are Equatorians. And all of us, including the people of Western Equatoria and the Eastern Equatoria, should look at this as something that is hitting Equatoria. And let Equatorians refrain from celebrating May 16th, not only specifically because of that, but because of the reasons that I provided, and also some other reasons that I might not have mentioned. Reason number 4 that I will give is, when we the Equatorians consider the reasons that I gave from 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then now into 4, would come to realize that the current result of the revolution that was fought by the SPLM, that is freedom from the rule of the North, was not even properly defined by the elites themselves who have fought. When they talked about freedom, that could be just a language that they wanted to trick the other people who are not part of the elites who have started that organization to get into or to participate into the fight. Because when we talked of freedom, South was fighting for freedom. What specifically were they talking about? Were they talking about freedom of the Southerners from the North? Okay, if it is freedom of Southerners from the North, so what else then? Are they also fighting for individual freedoms of the people of South Sudan, or tribal freedoms, or regional freedoms? The people bita Bahar al-Ghazal, Al Nil, or Equatoria, and I'm talking about the former provinces. All right, but that freedom is not articulated well. The concept of it, so that it will be understood. What freedom were they talking about? It's not even clear right now. Is it freedom to then erase the understanding that we are people who have inherited understanding that we have what is called ancestral lands, and we are kind of entitled to those lands and have the rights to protect those lands from others who are not originally from that lands. So was that fight to protect those freedom to protect those kind of concepts? All right, it is not well interpreted. That is why today, as we speak, you find some people who would want to come and loiter around in the equatorial areas, and when you say, hey, hold on, if you're coming here, you have to behave in a certain way, but if you're not, then we don't need you here. Then they say, oh no, the country has been liberated. You see, this is a result of misunderstanding the concept of the freedom that people have been talking about. And who should have explained those concepts of freedom very well to the people, so that the people understand? It's supposed to be those elites. But those elites are living in their own world. All they are doing is just right now taking the resources of the country, and the country is just tearing apart. People are cocooning themselves in tribal lines. So these are some few things that I would like to discuss with you, brothers and sisters, that suggests, from the standpoint of the Equatoria Advocacy Foundation, suggests that Equatorians shouldn't be celebrating May 16th. And if Equatorians rally around, if you rally around the concept that you don't want to celebrate May 16th, then that will always ring a bell unto your midst that there is something better you are looking after. All right? And unless down the road, government in South Sudan improves and meets the standards of basically the elements of what is called, or what used to be preached as vision of South Sudan, and governments start coordinating lives of people within the South Sudan in a way that fellow Equatorians, you now live happily. Unless we get to that point, Equatorians, you should refrain from celebrating May 16th. It should be known in South Sudan, even if it will go to the history books, that Equatorians have decided to refrain from celebrating May 16th because they think that what is happening right now in South Sudan is basically legitimizing the fact that the revolution was worthless. The revolution was worthless. Because John Garang himself even said at a time when he was doing orientation to his officers, he was saying there will come a time when they will have to transform this power of guns into a political ideas to develop the country, because there is no meaning to a revolution if the people later on don't live happy. He said it. He said there is no meaning to a revolution if people end up not living happy. Because if the SPLM revolution at the end of the day is not able to provide services to the people, then the people will prefer another political organization that will provide for them salt or provide for them their basic necessities for life. And he said this is just common sense, and indeed it is common sense, unless we have run out of common sense. So what I am saying is, fellow Equatorians, unless you are happy right now, unless the condition of your life is happy, then you go ahead and celebrate May 16th. But if your condition of life has been made miserable because of the result of this fighting, you don't need to celebrate May 16th. What are you celebrating it for? Even the concept of freedom, you are not even free. Right now, if you want to say, oh, I'm an Equatorian, I'm proud because I right now have a country, then I challenge you. What does it mean to have a country? What does it mean to have a country if later on in that country you are not free, but your life has been made more miserable than when you used to live when you were in Sudan? But when you were in Sudan, Sudan was not a country of other people. It was also your country. Before the South separated from Sudan, you were Sudanese. Right now you are South Sudanese because the country has separated. So there's no logic of saying I have a country right now. But Sudan was your country, Bardo. Sudan was your country. And if somebody said you lived actually better, you the Equatorians, you lived better under the administration of Sudan, accept it for so many reasons. Look at what has happened in Mukwaya. Has the government of North really ever did that? Well, there are times when they did that, let me say, during the 1960s or something like that, yes. But at a time when the movement was brought up, have such kind of things happened? The movement of the SPLM started around 1982. All right? Did you live life so miserably that it warranted you to pick up arms and fight so that you live the way you are living right now? I doubt it. But if the opinion that is coming from the Equatoria Advocacy Foundation is not a good one, I would love to hear somebody say, well, Sabata, the outcome of this revolution is still worthy. And give me reasons. And I don't know what reasons you're going to be given if you are living life in a very, very miserable form. Anyways, brothers and sisters, I thought this is just these are some few reasons that I would like to share with you, fellow Equatorians, as far as why Equatorians should not be celebrating May 16th right now. As far as the Equatoria Advocacy Foundation is concerned and where they stand right now, they just feel it's not the right time for Equatorians to celebrate May 16th until the condition of living changes. Because if the condition of living happens not to change, and the policies currently that are available are those policies that are basically heading towards ethnically cleansing Equatorians, then it will be meaningless to celebrate a result of a revolution that eventually is going to cleanse you. Doesn't make any sense at all. who on earth will celebrate result of a revolution that eventually will end up cleansing life of the very person who is celebrating? Then that person is foolish. Unless the conditions of living change, fellow Equatorians, where you are now seeing yourself as people who are having brighter future instead of getting cleansed. And if anybody says, Sabata, what do you mean by Equatorians getting cleansed? I'd like you to open your eyes. I've spoken in a couple of videos before on the possibility of Equatorians getting cleansed. One of the videos that I spoke on extensively is on April 9th, when I basically analyzed what Dr. Carol Berger talked about the state of South Sudan getting created on policies of ethnocide, that is cleansing other ethnic groups. I spoke intensively on that, and I will not speak substantively on ethnic cleansing on this video. So basically, these are a couple of few things that I would like to share with you. I hope on this May 16th, fellow Equatorians, let us all care about the situation that has happened a couple of days ago in Mukwaya, and let us all stand together as Equatorians and listen to each other as some organizations are coming up with ideas on how to humanitarianly help the people of Mukwaya. This is a very, very unfortunate situation that I would like to mention, because the people of Mukwaya, to begin with, they are not rebels. The government wanted to pursue rebels, and what then happened is the government ended up having their administrative units, that is the army, the forces of the government, ended up doing this to citizens. And this is basically the behaviors of a government that do not have trained military forces. Those are just militia who are tribal. They go to those territories, they are looking for the forces of National Salvation Front. They get into clashes. When they lose fights, battles, then they end up going to where the local populations are basically surviving, and then they carry lootings. You see, these are people, I've said it before, these are basically cattle rustlers being given uniform, and life of looting and raping is something very normal. It is a norm. You know, the word norm comes from normal. They make it normal. All right, they do that as they do cattle raidings in their places, and now they are doing it as they go out in pursuit of rebels. They lose battles, and then they end up doing this to citizens. So it makes it very hard for citizens to even appeal. Whom do you appeal to? Even if you appeal to your legislative, parliament, even if you appeal to a member of your parliament, all right? A member of your parliament is part of the administration. The same administration that has gone out and did that. So it becomes a very, very complicated situation. The citizens eventually will just have to rely on what is called humanitarian assistance that will be coming out from churches, from other civil organizations, and other communities also in diaspora. So in conclusion, I just want to hint this, and this is basically the last part of what I will be talking about. It's not going only to the Equatorians, but it is more of a general information to South Sudanese. That in the event such kind of policies continue, what the Equatoria Advocacy Foundation is envisioning is the Equatorial Advocacy Foundation is envisioning a kind of a situation that is down the road similar to how Somalia used to be, where people at a particular territory will eventually end up conditioned to form what is called militia. Equatorians have never had what is called tribal militias, people who are just armed, young youth who will just arm themselves and are sitting there, okay, in protection of what is called the lives of their people within specific territories. The people of Equatoria are educated such that they understand that protection of citizens comes from the government. The government has what is called an institution, especially the military sector, and the military sector has what is called administrative units in it. Others are more of law enforcement, which are the police, and there are those defense units, administrative defense units, that are supposed to defend the entire country from external attacks. And the police from within are law enforcement. They are basically enforcing what is called the policies that are coordinating lives of the people from within. And this is something that Equatorians have always known. And they have always relied on what is called government military sector or the police to maintain peace and order. But when such kind of things happen again and again in the equatorial area, then what eventually is going to come to the minds of the Equatorians is they are going to figure out that, oh wow, it looks like we can no longer rely on what is called government administrative units for protection. So that will eventually mean we will have to coin our own mechanisms. We will have to produce our own young men, all right, and arm them so that there will be what is called local defense units to the population, to the local population. And that means then the beginning of generating what is called militia. And when Equatorians now start thinking along those lines, and they start generating militia, and of course Murle have their own, and Nuer have their own, that's the White Army, and Dinga have their own, living in the villages, some of which are being now taken, given uniform, are now under the structure of what is called state administrative units. So Equatorians, when they start putting theirs also, guess how the country is going to look like? The country is going to look typical like how Somalia used to be around the 1990s, in the beginning of the 1990s, where you just, and because those fighting units are going to be under local leaders. They are not going to be loyal to constitution. They will not even understand what the constitution is, because they are formed by local groups. They are not formed by the state. It is only those who are formed by the state that are supposed to be taught the constitution and human rights and all that, so that they will protect the country well. But if Equatorians are subjected to that condition and they end up forming their own local militia in order to protect their citizens, because they feel the government can no longer do that, then the country is just going to look like, down the road, it's going to look like Somalia. How Somalia used to be. Well, Somalia is even out of that condition right now. Somalia is doing fine. So it looks like Sudan is going back to that kind of a condition, where eventually you're going to have local leaders of what is called fighting units. And every president, even those presidents that will be coming after Kir, of course Kir is not going to be there for life. Even those presidents who will be coming after Kir will be then subjected to try to appease the local leaders of these fighting units, okay, and embrace them in their government in order to maintain peace. Because if they don't do that, there will always be instability in the country because of all those local fighting units, right? So you can imagine how the country is going to look like. And it looks like we are heading to that direction. Because when you look at the entire South Sudan as a country right now, we really don't have trained, well-established armies. They are there, but they are very few right now. Their voices are not even being heard. The country is pretty much full of militia. And only in the equatorial areas, are there lack of these tribal militias. But if the situation that happened in Mukwaya continues, because this is not the first time. It happened before in Katigri, all right? It happened before in Katigri. It happened in Yambio, all right, where these government administrative units go and create this kind of instability amongst the citizens around those areas. So down the road, these citizens will figure out they will just have to have their own militias, all right? Because imagine when it happened to the Nuer in Juba in 2013, what did we see? When it happened to the Nuer in Juba, when government administrative unit went and searched and did house-to-house killing on the Nuer tribesmen, what did we see happen in the areas of Upper Nile region? We saw a lot of retaliatory killings that were indiscriminately carried, all right? And down the road even evolved into what is called a civil movement of the IO. So you can imagine if the Equatorial tribes now decide to have all those fighting units in their territories in protection of their people from such kind of behaviors that the government administrative units are doing, then South Sudan is going to become a very, very sensitive area where fighting will erupt at any time. And people will throughout be living in civil wars instead of peace, where children will be studying, development will be going, business will be going. So people will just be living miserable life, and that country will be hell. Brothers and sisters, thank you very much. I hope we will convene again for another session of a video. With now, I leave you with this. Take care of yourself from COVID-19, and God bless you. Remember, Equatorians, it's not time to celebrate May 16th yet. Thank you very much, and God bless you.